Share a quick video with you all about aspartame. Now, I've had a few people asking me about aspartame, uh, more in particular things like Coke Zero, these zero sugar drinks, artificial sweeteners, and their correlation to cancer. I'm sure you've seen or heard of studies relating Coke Zero or aspartame more specifically to cancer. Now, the points I'm going to bring up are just based purely on the science and studies we have at hand. Now, the first thing I want to read, I think this sums up perfectly. Where is it? Here we go. Medical industrial complex all know about the dangers of this chemical, but are hiding the truth from the public in order to protect corporate profits and avoid the pesky paperwork that would accompany the truth being revealed. The only glimmer of hope is a dedicated band of bloggers and anonymous email chain letter authors who aren't afraid to speak the truth. Now, the reason I share this is someone will read a blog or hear something, then they write their own blog, then they share it, believing that it's the truth. Now, the first thing we have to look at is it was about 2 months ago the World Health Organization made bacon a carcinogenic. They made most red meats a carcinogenic. Now, the World Health Organization, the FDA, are that quick. In terms of supplements, they ban supplements like it's going out of fashion. There was MDMA, which was in pre-workouts, ephedrine as well. There's so many supplements or compounds that the FDA banned. The World Health Organization has banned bacon. So what that means is aspartame can't be any worse than bacon. Now, the next thing I'll point out is the studies. There's one study that people are using saying that Coke Zero aspartame causes cancer. This study was done on rats, and there's numerous things I recommend you to Google and have a look through, talking about the different effects compounds have on rats as opposed to humans. Now, if we base on this study of rats, so let's say this is the truth. There's a toxicity level for everything. So vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, everything has a toxicity level. Now, the amount of Coke Zero you would have to drink in one day in the space of a couple of hours to possibly push that toxicity level. So once you hit that toxicity level, they said that there could be a chance that there could be some negative sides. You would need to drink, I think it's around 40 cans of Coke Zero. Now, if you're drinking 3 or 4 cans, and there is no chance at all there's going to be any negative sides, there's no one is going to be drinking 40. And even if you do drink those 40 cans in the space of a day, there is still not definitive proof and that it will cause any negatives. And they say it possibly could. Now, again, if there was something that was extremely dangerous for us, there isn't this whole conspiracy theory where Coca-Cola have more power over the World Health Organization. That if we look at it logically, that's not going to happen. The World Health Organization is a huge governing body, and it just wouldn't be possible for Coca-Cola or something like that. And they're not the evil company that I think they get portrayed in the media as. But the things I want to point out is whenever we look at something, we should just look at science. Now, what happens is we believe that if something's not man-made, then it's bad for us. If it's made in a factory or something, it's bad for us. And I 100% understand why we think that, why we fear that. Although, if we look at the science behind it, numerous studies, we've got to remember aspartame isn't some new artificial sweetener that's been around for 5 years. It's been around since 1985. There's been studies since 1985. So it's now coming up to what? 20, 30, 31 years. 31 years worth of studies. And out of those 31 years worth of studies, hundreds upon hundreds of studies with huge groups, there's this one study with a small group of rats that has shown that it could cause some form of cancer if the toxicity level is too high. Now, first thing is we always look at science. Second thing is the toxicity level is way too high. If you're having 40 cans a day, I wouldn't even. There's other issues probably if you're having 40 cans a day of Coke Zero. But in terms of toxicity, in terms of the cancer side and the negatives, Coke Zero, all the studies show is a green light. The only thing I would say on the Coke Zero subject is you've got a spectrum here and here. You've got water is all the way over here, and you've got Coke Zero over here. Actually, you got Coke. So you probably got a Red Bull over here. Actually, so you got water and you got something like Red Bull that's full of heaps of different crap, and it's full of heaps of sugar. Now, water's the ideal, but having water all the time probably isn't realistic for most people. Now, what we found is something like Coke Zero is probably around here. It's not the ideal best thing to have, but it's not the worst thing to have by any means. The reason it isn't the best thing to have is we've got to remember with artificial sweeteners, they still trigger this part of the brain, the pleasure response, like we get from sugar. Sugar gives us a natural high. We feel good when we have it. That's why we want more of it. And Coke Zero has been shown from a neurological side to stimulate the same part of the brain. So even though we're having Coke Zero, we're not addressing the true issue, which is the sugar. We can say sugar addiction, not addiction, but sugar cravings, and this sugar high that we're chasing. So, in terms of Coke Zero, recommendations is obviously not having 40 cans per day. You shouldn't be having that at all. But Coke Zero every now and then is fine. You shouldn't be expected just to have water 100% every day, and that's the only thing you drink. It's not realistic in the society we live in, and it's everything in moderation. From a body composition side, Coke Zero will elicit more body fat loss if you are currently having sugary drinks. If you're having sugary drinks and you move to Coke Zero, less calories. That's the main thing we need to look at in terms of body composition. But again, just really summing this up, let's look at the science. Let's not look at bloggers who have seen something or heard something from a friend or believe they should be bad for us because it's made in a factory or it's made in a lab. From a body composition view, Coke Zero is a green light. But let's keep the numbers down just from the perspective of breaking these sugar habits that our society seems to be in.